A new book about the Knights of Columbus is providing a first ever visual look at the origins of the world's largest Catholic fraternal organization. The Knights of Columbus, an illustrated history, combines photos and copies of historic records to document the evolution of the organization, whose membership now numbers close to 2 million Catholic men around the world. Andrew Walther, Vice President of Communications for the Knights of Columbus, as well as the book's co-author, joins me now. Andrew, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So there have been a lot of histories written about the Knights of Columbus. How is this book different? And I know it's kind of groundbreaking.
Well, it's different because first, it's the first history of the organization in almost 4 decades. And second, it's the first ever illustrated history. So we have an enormous archive with more than 100,000 assets in terms of digital photos, hard copy photos, etc. And taking some of the best of those and putting them into this book, as well as having the running narrative in the text, I think added a dimension. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, I wouldn't want to estimate the number of words in the book, but it's really, I think, quite engaging and a real look behind the curtain through these pictures at what was going on in the history of the organization as it touched so many different aspects of American and world history.
Absolutely. We were thumbing through it earlier, and just beautiful pictures as well, the illustrations. So really great book.
Well, thank you very much. I think, again, in 140 years, more or less, the Knights of Columbus has done some really incredible things. It's touched on history in ways that are unique. It was groundbreaking in terms of its racial outreach, for example. It was groundbreaking in terms of some of the work it did on religious freedom in the United States and Catholic civil rights. It was groundbreaking in helping to pioneer the USO, both with what we did in World War I and actually pioneering it with the USO in World War II. So there's just so many aspects of what the Knights have done historically that what we're doing now is built upon, and what the future after today will continue to look back to and be built upon. I think bringing that all together was really a joy and a privilege.
What surprised you most when you were researching and writing this book?
I think the breadth and scope of what the Knights have done is really phenomenal, because you have the national level policies, you have the major issues that have been taken up by the organization as a whole, but you also have the individual lives that are touched. So you have this combination of no job is too big and no job is too small for the Knights of Columbus. And I think that was very, very interesting. Also, I think very interesting was the importance of faith at the foundation of the Knights of Columbus, that Father McGivney was concerned about his men leaving the faith for social advancement or financial advancement. And he was also concerned about the families of widows and orphans, which is a story most people know. But part of that concern was that when a family split up, they ended up in a state-run institution, which certainly was not Catholic. They ended up with relatives who may not have been Catholic. And there was also a very early concern about making sure that Catholics were able to maintain the equal rights that the U.S. Constitution promised them in an era where anti-Catholicism was quite strong. So I think that unique combination of things has lent itself to an organization that was groundbreaking and history-making in the 20th century and into the 21st.
As far as religious freedom, let's talk about, we touched on how important it was back then from the beginning and how it is still today.
Well, the Knights of Columbus have focused both domestically and internationally. So domestically, the Knights did things like take on the KKK when it tried to ban Catholic education in the state of Oregon. And so the Knights funded Pierce versus Society of Sisters, which was the case that ultimately overturned the Klan-inspired law outlawing Catholic education in that state. The Knights also spoke out internationally. We spoke out against anti-Catholic policies that the U.S. government was engaging in the Philippines and Cuba before the turn of the 20th century. We spoke out against the French secularism law of 1905. We helped the Mexican Catholics in the 1920s, the Armenian Christians in the 1920s. And of course today, this work continues as it did during World War II, as it did during the Cold War. Now with the support for Christians in the Middle East and persecuted Christians, this continues, as does our work standing for the religious freedom and Catholic civil rights of people at home through any number of projects here in the United States as well.
Andrew, quickly, tell us, what would you like readers to take away from this book?
I think I would like readers to take away from this book what can happen through the Knights of Columbus. When men join the Knights of Columbus, when they get involved, when they get their families involved, they can do really incredible things at the local level, at the state level, at the national level. I think I'd also like people to take away from this what happens when you put faith into action. You know, the gospel talks about where 2 or 3 are gathered. This is an example of that precisely. It's paying dividends that continue to impact our world as we live in it today and as we will live in it tomorrow.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to read the rest of this book, and it is due for release March 9th?
March 9th. It's available for pre-order now at knightsgear.com/history. There's a nice discount on it for the time being, and I look forward to having people take a look and learn a little more.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Andrew.
Thank you.